What's going on, Quantum Nation? So today we're reviewing Alita Battle Angel. Now, this is the 4K variant that comes with all the other versions of it. So I'm going to be unboxing it to show you what you get. Right out the gate, I love this holographic look. I think that is so cool, and I love when they do that because it's just such a nice look to the overall film. You know, I like when they do little funny things like add art here. I think that's, yeah, it's some effort, and I like the effort, but I really love the holographic material. So dig in the effort as far as how they, by the way, you have it on both sides, so either way you put it on the shelf, you will have that art there. So I think that's really cool, and so right out the gate, it's looking pretty good. So once we take that cover off, obviously, you're just here with your plain movie cover and stuff like that, your movie art. And so we're going to unbox this here, okay? Now, just for watching the video, here's a free digital code for this movie. You guys can have that. First come, first serve, of course. I'll zoom in here for you guys looking for that code. Pause the video, grab it on the house. Enjoy Alita Battle Angel. Quantum Nation all day. Now, we're going to be looking at the disc itself. So, as you guys can see, we have a couple different versions. Got a little booklet here. This booklet comes with, I guess, advertisements for toys. I would imagine that they want you to buy. Just letting you know all the merchandise you can purchase if you're a super fan of the movie. Now, you've got a couple different variations. You've got the Blu-ray disc, obviously. You've got the 4K variation, and you've got the 3D variation. And this is really cool to see that 3D is still being made in 2019. Though, to be very honest with you, I wish they would make some really killer, like 4D TVs even, or glassless 3D TVs already. Because, I mean, really, the technology is out there, and it's about time, right? Like, HDR is a joke. I'm just going to let you know right out the gate before I even start railing into anything or talking about anything. HDR is bad. Like, I don't like HDR at all. That being said, I feel like 3D is a much better benefit. Obviously, three-dimensional objects drawing you into your content. I mean, who wouldn't like that? I mean, normal 3D, not like the 3D with the glasses that are flickery and give you like nausea and all that other crazy stuff, motion sickness, you know, that kind of thing. But so far, this is what it looks like when you buy the movie, just so you can kind of get an idea of what that's going to look like. And we're going to dive into the rest of it. Alita Battle Angel is 2 hours long. Now, I'm going to give you some spoilers here, so if you don't like that type of thing, sorry. But essentially, this movie could have been done in an hour. I feel like they completely wasted 2 hours of my life, and I'm going to tell you why. So essentially, the plot goes like this. 300-year-old android doesn't know who she is or where she is after falling from this illustrious city called Zalem, which is a city floating above another city, which is a crappy city that nobody wants to live in. And they all want to go up into the nice city. Well, essentially, the doctor puts her back together. She finds out that he's actually a hunter warrior. She finds out that he knew who she was. She wants to find out who she is, build herself up into the strong warrior type. And it's just this drug-on concept of lost girl, right? I don't know who I am. Where am I? What are my memories? I don't know, right? That whole thing. And it's her trying to get her memory back. And then she, meets this dude that, worked with the doctor. And, they have this romance that's so rushed and so unbelievable and so disenchanting, you would cringe. Nothing at all like what the anime portrayed. And I feel like maybe they should have worked a little harder to convince us that they were actually an item, because it just got to a point where you felt like, why is she even caring if he lives or dies, kind of thing. And it's just basically, in a nutshell, this whole movie ends with the dude that she supposedly fell in love with, getting crushed into pieces like in the anime. And she's angry and she wants to go up to Zalem, and she doesn't get to. Really, she doesn't get to. If you wanted to know, like, the whole movie leads up to her going and getting her revenge, and it just stops with her pointing her sword at the people that she wants to go up to and attack. I mean, like, it's just like, can you not? Can you maybe do that in an hour maybe of my time and spare me all the inconsequential details that could have, I don't know. It just felt very rushed and very poorly put together. That's the only way I could describe Alita Battle Angel. Yes, the action is great. Yes, it's an entertaining movie. But if you're talking about from a 2 hour perspective, did they accomplish the goal? No, I don't feel like they did. I feel like leading me into another movie on such a cliffhanger is BS. I would have liked it more if she actually would have made it up into Zalem, and then the movie stops with her being in Zalem, and then you can start a secondary movie after that. But just for her to look at it, and I'm gonna get there, and the whole time, the whole concept behind this freaking the movie is everybody trying to go up to Zalem and it never going there. Like, it's so stupid. So stupid. Like, honestly, seriously, a waste of your time. Catch it for 1999 because, I mean, really, the cost of value ratio for the amount of time you're going to put into this thing, seriously not there. Now, when we look at the casting, I think they tried their best, right? I think they tried to match the Doctor up with somebody that has a similar nose and facial shape, which I think they did a great job with that. And when you look across the board for all the characters, they tried to get the likeness of all of these characters to the best that they could. Until you get to the cyborg. I don't know what in the actual hell they were thinking. That the guy has a fat face. He's completely way left field from what the cyborg actually looks like with this skinny, kind of like really like druggy looking face, I don't know how else to describe him, right? And he's got a mohawk, he's got goggles. This cyborg has none of that. They just did whatever the hell they wanted. They're like, you know what? We'll build the robot our way. We don't care. For all the other characters, it seems they tried to capture a similar likeness until the cyborg. Now, there are little nuanced things that I really can't stand. For example, like there's supposed to be a crescent moon on the Doctor's forehead. There's also supposed to be blonde hair. He doesn't have any of that. He's just some old gray-haired dude. So I don't know why Hollywood forgets that they can have wigs and just do that, because, I mean, really, at this point, this is starting to look like a low-budget film. This isn't... They did this with 3 characters, guys. 3 characters, they botched the hairstyle. If you look at the Doctor, he's supposed to have blonde hair. If you look at the Doctor's wife, she's supposed to have blonde hair. And if you look at the cyborg, he's supposed to have a mohawk. What in the actual F? So I don't think that they're actually taking hairstyles from the anime seriously. And again, it's kind of annoying, especially when you go through an entire movie with such a massive difference from the canon. Like, for crying out loud, the Doctor's wife is a brunette. She's supposed to be a blonde. Massive difference right there. Those are basically 2 different people, if you ask me. I just don't understand that logic. And so from that standpoint, it's really annoying. Not to mention, they focus too much on making Alita look like some child. They focus on her being this young teenage girl and less of a warrior hunter, young woman badass. I don't get it. They go for this childish theme and this vibe, and like she's wearing rainbow shirts and like little girly clothes that are just like, she's a badass killer. Like, that's, I mean, come on. She's a berserker. Like, why in the hell are you making her look like a child just because she doesn't know what she is yet? Like, I don't know. I feel like the way they went about this, very stupid, very Hollywood, very 2019. And if you look at the actress that they cast for her, I don't know how they turned that into CGI version of what she is, but the power of digital animation, whatever. But I don't know. I just feel like this movie, in essence, from a casting perspective, just went very 2019 and said to hell with the canon. And honestly, it's really annoying because the canon actually knows what it's doing with making characters look as charming as they can look for the particular story. And, yeah, it's great if you don't know anything about Alita, then you're just watching a movie. But if you actually watch the anime and then you watch this, you're going to be annoyed with how different the people look. I mean, we're talking clothes are different. I mean, the boy, it looks so different from what he looks like in the anime that he's an entirely different character at this point. He's some young punk-ass kid from 2019, right? Let's call it what it is. And he's not this kid, this charming young kid. And I don't know. I just don't like it at all. Just not my thing. So the experience on OLED, as I perceived it, as I experienced it on a professionally calibrated display, is SDR is going to be one of the better ways to watch this movie. You're going to have tremendous amounts of vibrancy compared to HDR. HDR tends to wash out color a great deal. So if you wanted to watch the HDR version of this film, just know it's going to be a little bit more muted. Yes, skin tones still are a little bit more natural. You can see more details because you have less color saturation and vibrancy overall. But naturally, I tend to go towards something that's brighter with more color, and it just works better when you watch the Blu-ray variant. It's really well done, as you guys can clearly see. Very, very gorgeous stuff here. Now, it's important to understand, though, that you can't watch 4K movies, or at least most 4K movies, without some form of HDR enabled, and this movie is abundantly true for that statement. So what happens when you do that is it basically, like, let's say you toggle off HDR. You don't like it, you don't want those muted ugly colors, but you don't exactly want to go down to a 1080p Blu-ray to enjoy your content, right? Who would? Well, tough, because if you don't go to the 1080p Blu-ray, the image will be so dim and so dark that honestly there's no point in watching the movie at all. And like a dumbass, I'm not even joking, that was how I initially watched this movie. So I went through the whole movie thinking it was this dark, dim movie, when in fact it's just this movie was mastered in HDR, and if you try to watch a standard 4K SDR, it's gonna look like shit. And that's basically how it boils down. Now, when I watched the HDR version and the SDR version, it's, you know, day and night, dude. I mean, as you can see in this image on my LG OLED E8, dude, like, it was dramatic how much color I lost on the OLED. Like, it was like I watched a TV from like the 1960s or 70s, like the beginning of color TV. It was crappy, dude. Like, HDR, it washes out way too much color. And I just don't know why it does that. Doesn't matter how you calibrate it, it just, wow, you know? And this picture says a lot, and it speaks a lot towards the way that HDR is represented. Now, me being me, I'm not just going to judge the movie that way, right? Because maybe it's only OLED that washes out when it gets to HDR like this. And so I figured, you know what? Let's try the Samsung Q8FN. So on the Samsung Q8FN, it was almost identical, though it was a little bit more washed out on the HDR variant. Though it's really difficult to tell from this image because HDR is so much brighter and the dynamic range is through the roof that you really can't record that and then post it to YouTube and get accuracy. So you're just gonna have to take my word for it when I tell you the SDR version was overall definitely more impressive and more aesthetically pleasing, where HDR not really that slice. I didn't really like it that much because I felt like it had a lot of weaknesses and inconsistencies with color paletry. Now, when we looked at this image, they were pretty comparable as far as color representation. It did not wash out anywhere near to the degree that OLED did, which I find strange. Like, I thought like it would have been the same, but it wasn't. So that's definitely some like an OLED thing, I guess, where they just choose an artistic style or whatever, but I don't know. So, you know, it does vary depending on the type of TV you watch as well, which is ultimately why I prefer QLED for HDR based content. But ultimately, I prefer the SDR variation either way. And in doing that, it looked great on both TVs. And, you know, watching just regular SDR Q8FN content, dude, was just incredible. I mean, you're looking at just some of the most beautiful imagery like you could possibly hope to see on a display like this. All the visual effects coming through in full force. Not a single complaint on my end. I really couldn't lodge a single complaint. I thought so highly of the performance, you know, and going over and switching back then again to OLED and saying, hey, what does OLED look like? It was gorgeous, right? When you're looking at just the regular SDR performance, I really enjoyed it, and I really thought it was quite beautiful. But ultimately, it's just like, they're just so different, SDR and HDR and OLED and QLED, that really it's gonna come down to like a personality trait. Like, you're either gonna like more muted colors on the OLED, or you're gonna like more vibrant colors on the QLED. You're either gonna like more color vibrancy and contrast and black levels and overall brightness on SDR, or you're gonna prefer HDR being a little bit more on the washed and muted side, just to have a little more of the extra details that you don't see. That's just kind of like the take I got from it. Overall, I think the HDR representation is pretty much on par with the industry standard and how HDR is represented. So I don't think they did anything different. I will say though, I hate the fact that, again, if you're an SDR, 4K SDR, your image is basically unusable. It's really super dark. It's basically like 100 nits. It's super crappy, and it's not at all how you should be watching the movie at all. For that, just put in the Blu-ray version. It's so much better. And honestly, I had a hard time telling the difference between the Blu-ray and the 4K variant. Just saying. But that being said, that's my review on this particular product. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys didn't enjoy it, let me know in the comment section down below. That being said, thanks for watching the #1 brand in honesty, and until the next video, I'll see you guys later.